Behind the velvet curtain of Moscow's elite lies a darker reality, a world where diamonds are paid for in blood and champagne flows as freely as bribes. This is the untold story of Russia's mafia bosses, their fortunes, their crimes, and their dangerously opulent lifestyles. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Russia was left in ruins. Overnight, the Iron Curtain lifted, but so did the lid on decades of state suppression. What remained was chaos, economic, political, and social. In the ashes of communism, capitalism arrived like a freight train, but without brakes or rules. Factories shut down, pensions vanished, law enforcement was underfunded and overwhelmed. For everyday Russians, survival meant turning to the black market and the people who controlled it. Enter the Bratva. Bratva means brotherhood, but don't be fooled by the name. This was no family, it was an empire, a vast network of criminal syndicates with roots in Soviet prison culture. Each gang had a stronghold: Solontsevskaya in Moscow, Tambovskaya in St. Petersburg, Uralmash in Yekaterinburg. They weren't just thugs with guns, they were businessmen with blood on their hands. Sergei Mikhailov, the alleged head of the Solontsevskaya Bratva, rose from small-time racketeer to international crime boss in under a decade. Under his watch, the group infiltrated nearly every sector of the Russian economy: banks, shipping companies, construction firms, and nightclubs. Protection rackets became the norm. Small businesses had to pay krisha, a roof, or protection money, just to survive. If you didn't pay, you didn't just lose your business, you lost your kneecaps, or worse. The 1990s were known as the Wild East. Contract killings became so common that some Russian newspapers included a weekly mafia death toll. Former KGB agents became enforcers. Army veterans became hitmen. Even politicians weren't safe. In just one decade, it's estimated that over 3,000 mafia-related murders occurred. Many were never solved, many never even investigated. And while bullets flew in the streets, a different war was being fought in boardrooms. The Russian state sold off its most valuable assets in rushed privatization auctions. Oil, gas, aluminum, all went on sale. Who had the money? The mafia. Who had the muscle to enforce business deals? The mafia. Oligarchs like Boris Berezovsky later admitted they paid criminal groups to protect their lives and assets. Others, like Roman Abramovich, built empires in sectors allegedly dominated by organized crime. The truth was murky. The line between businessman and mobster, practically invisible. By the early 2000s, the bullets had slowed, the bodies were buried, and the Russian mafia, now wealthier than ever, turned its gaze from bloodshed to opulence. Rubleyovka, a once forested suburb west of Moscow, became the new seat of power. Here, mafia-linked billionaires and government elites built estates that made Versailles look modest. A single property might cost $50 million, featuring underground spas, indoor shooting ranges, and hidden escape tunnels. To stay hidden, these properties were often purchased through offshore companies. Ownership was buried under layers of secrecy, but the lifestyle? That was always on display. They weren't just kings of Moscow, they became international players. Known mob figures chartered 100-meter super yachts in Monaco, where they mingled with European royalty, celebrities, and billionaires. In one infamous case, a mafia-affiliated businessman rented an entire section of the Hotel de Paris in Monte Carlo just to throw a 3-day party featuring Elton John and 50 bottles of Cristal. Back home, their daily lives resembled war zones. Convoys of bulletproof Mercedes G-Wagons, bodyguards trained in Israel, secret panic rooms in every residence. One mafia-linked tycoon even had his own private police force, outfitted better than local SWAT teams. In the clubs of Moscow, extravagance reached bizarre extremes. Tables covered in black caviar, ice sculptures shaped like Kalashnikov rifles, and yes, actual tigers on leashes brought in to show dominance. At the now closed Soho Rooms, a legendary spot for the Russian elite, a single mafia boss reportedly spent $120,000 in one night, ordering 50 bottles of Armand de Brignac, flown in on a private jet. And the travel? Only first class, or rather, their own class. Private jets with gold sinks, silk seats, and security details on board. One Mafia boss even custom installed a conference room inside his jet, not for business deals, but for poker games with million-dollar stakes. Luxury jewelry became a currency of power. $500,000 Patek Philippe watches, custom rings with cartel-style engravings, and gifts to mistresses that included entire apartments in Dubai. To understand the Russian Mafia's obsession with luxury, you have to understand one thing. Luxury is language, a display of dominance, a psychological weapon. When a Mafia boss pulls up in a $3 million Bugatti, flanked by bodyguards in matching Audemars Piguet watches, it's not just wealth on display, it's a warning. Many of these men came from nothing: prison beds, tenement flats, broken families. The message was clear: I've won. I survived the gulags, the gang wars, the state, and now I dine where oligarchs beg for a table. Luxury real estate was another major flex. Not just Rubliovka mansions, but fortress-like penthouses in Moscow City's Federation Tower. Some of these apartments have panic rooms, reinforced walls, encrypted security systems, and even built-in escape tunnels leading to underground garages. Law enforcement has long suspected that these properties double as clean zones, locations where Mafia dons meet in person to avoid phone surveillance. Many are registered under foreign entities or the names of mistresses, bodyguards, or loyal fall guys. Then there's nightlife. For Russian Mafia bosses, owning the night was part of the game. Some even bought stakes in the clubs themselves, ensuring they always had the best tables, the prettiest models, and the full attention of staff. One well-known figure once threw a birthday party for his son, aged 10, that cost more than most Russians earn in a decade. The venue had its own custom-built aquarium with dolphins, a stage imported from Paris, and French chefs flown in on private jets. Wardrobes were another battlefield of status: tailored Zilly jackets, Keaton suits at $20,000 apiece, crocodile skin loafers. A former personal tailor to Moscow elites said, "Some clients buy 5 of the same suit, not because they need them, but because they want everyone else to know they can." Some went even further. In Sochi, one Mafia-affiliated tycoon built a villa styled after the Winter Palace, complete with a home cinema designed to mimic the acoustics of the Bolshoi Theatre. Velvet walls, Swarovski crystal chandeliers, and a private wine cellar worth over $5 million. But the ultimate shows of power? Weddings and funerals. Mafia weddings have become folklore in Russia, entire blocks shut down, police escorts waving through convoys of Bentleys, and guest lists that include politicians, athletes, and celebrities. At one wedding in Chechnya, guests were gifted Rolexes just for attending. As their influence and fortunes grew, Russia's Mafia bosses went global, and so did their money. The streets of Moscow were just the beginning. The real empire was in offshore banks, global shell companies, and high-end assets hidden in plain sight. Between 2010 and 2014, investigators uncovered a financial scheme known as the Russian laundromat. Over $20 billion was funneled out of Russia through fake loans, rigged court rulings, and shell companies in Moldova and Latvia. The money was then cleaned through banks in the UK, Hong Kong, and the US. Global banks moved the money, often unwittingly, but sometimes without asking too many questions. A portion of those funds were allegedly tied to Mafia families looking to legitimize their wealth through luxury purchases. London became a favourite. One penthouse in One Hyde Park, sold for over £140 million, was reportedly purchased by a trust linked to a Russian tycoon with alleged underworld ties. Investigative journalists believe at least £1.5 billion of questionable Russian money was used to buy London real estate. In Spain, the Marbella coast became a haven. The Troika operation by Spanish police uncovered Russian Mafia involvement in dozens of businesses, including luxury resorts, nightclubs, and real estate developments. One Mafia associate was found to own over 30 properties under false names. In Asia, Macau was the destination of choice. Russian underworld figures reportedly laundered money through high-stakes baccarat games. One former dealer said they'd lose $500,000 in a night, and tip $50,000 in watches. Even the US got involved. Semyon Mogilevich, one of the FBI's most wanted, was linked to global rackets including weapons trafficking, tax fraud and arms dealing. Despite sanctions and arrest warrants, he allegedly operated from Moscow under political protection. And then there's art. Russian crime bosses were known to launder money through high-end art auctions. One infamous painting, a Kandinsky, was purchased for $41 million by a shell company later traced to a Russian holding with Mafia ties. Why art? No serial numbers, no fingerprints, just clean, valuable assets. From Saint-Tropez to Courchevel, the Russian Mafia's reach has been as long as their bank accounts. Their assets may be hidden, but their lavish lifestyle is impossible to ignore. But all that glitters isn't gold. Dozens of Mafia bosses have been assassinated, some brazenly in broad daylight. In 2009, Vyacheslav Ivankov, once considered the boss of bosses, was gunned down in Moscow. Whistleblowers, journalists, even former allies have vanished or turned up dead. The deeper you go, the darker it gets. The Russian Mafia built empires from chaos. Their wealth is staggering, their power legendary. But in the shadows they rule, no one stays untouchable for long. In the world of the Bratva, the price of power is everything, even your life. But they're not the only underworld empire blending crime with couture. Travel east, to Tokyo's neon-lit alleys, where another secretive syndicate hides in plain sight. Step inside the silent, ritual-bound world of the Yakuza, where tattoos tell stories, and respect is more dangerous than revenge. Click now to watch Luxury and Crime inside the secret world of the Yakuza.